Demon Core, the true story.
In 1946, a P-239 plutonium core scheduled for detonation by nuclear bomb was harmlessly melted down and reintegrated into the United States' nuclear stockpile. That was the end of a 14-pound metallic sphere that had killed 2 scientists not 11 months before.
We killed someone?
This is the true story of the Demon Core.
Okay, this is a really quick pause, but they recycle nuclear material? Like, they just made it into a ball and then just, like, melted it down and started again?
The spheres of atomic material that had obliterated the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki would have easily fit in your hand, and they were light enough to carry. Because of the extreme levels of radiation coming from them, the cores were carried around in secure containers, but curious physicists reported that the cores were disturbingly warm to the touch.
Oh.
Both the Little Boy and Fat Man nuclear bombs use subcritical masses of uranium and plutonium respectively, meaning that no self-sustaining nuclear reaction would be possible with the spheres alone, and the nickel plating that covered them would prevent most of the escaping radiation from harming you. The real harm comes later. The terrible explosions that Little Boy and Fat Man are famous for only happen when a nuclear core goes critical, using directed conventional explosives to artificially induce a critical mass. This meant literally compressing a plutonium or uranium sphere into a much smaller volume with explosions. Now, neutrons emitted from natural radioactivity would be much more likely to go on and impact other atoms before escaping, leading to a chain reaction of exponentially more and more atoms releasing tremendous energy.
Right, I'm not gonna lie. Like, as a species, how destructive in nature are we that this made sense to someone enough because they wanted to make a big boom? That is crazy to me. Like, look at this shit. Like, look at that. How do you evolve to get to a point where you go, the dynamite is not destructive enough, alas. Let me recreate what we know about bombs and make this. That's crazy stuff. That's actually crazy stuff. And do you know what's also outlandish about the bombs these big about? Well, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? I mean, Oppenheimer, I'm quoting here, like, that, they didn't know that wasn't going to set fire to, the environment, all right? They didn't know if that was just going to basically burn every fucking atom alongside with it. They weren't 100% certain that wouldn't happen. Yet they still... That you got to be really, really trigger happy for that. Okay, I'm moving on. I'm moving on.
At the heart of an atomic blast is a radioactive core filled with atoms poised like rat traps. All the bomb itself does is force one of those traps to snap.
So they're deliberately poking the bear.
The so-called Demon Core was the third core of fissionable nuclear material made during the World War II era. It was also supposed to be dropped on Japan, but after the Empire's prompt surrender following the obliteration of Nagasaki, the core had no immediate military use. Instead, a physicist working at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico after the war decided to use the remaining core to figure out just what it takes to make a core like this go critical. When Otto Robert Frisch first arrived in the United States, he was placed at Los Alamos to study neutron multiplication in uranium and plutonium. These elements naturally radiate neutrons in the process of nuclear decay, and as we said, if there is enough of the radioactive element close enough together, these neutrons can go on to cause the rat trap style reaction as neutrons slam more neutrons free from other atoms. However, there is another way to force criticality other than just having a giant sphere of plutonium, which would be hard to make. It turns out that if you use a very thick material to reflect neutrons coming out of the material back upon itself, like a mirror would, a self-sustaining reaction can occur with substantially less plutonium or uranium.
Wait, so it just basically gets like the particles to just bounce around in there and eventually it crashes together and creates the same effect? That's actually like evil genius brilliant, but it kind of feels like a botch job version of it and it just cooks. That's kind of cool.
Even though an explosion might not happen after criticality is reached in all cases, a deadly blast of radiation certainly could. And that's exactly what happened. By 1944, Frisch was leading the critical assembly group at Los Alamos and started a dangerous series of near-criticality testing. The physicists in the group wanted to use neutron-reflective materials around spheres of plutonium and uranium to see just how close they could get to going critical, without explosives and without going over the edge. Commenting on the inherent risk of experiments of this kind, legendary physicist Richard Feynman reportedly said that the experiments were like, quote, tickling the tail of a sleeping dragon, end quote.
Wouldn't recommend that one. So I actually feel like if you compare your experiments to tickling the tail of a sleeping dragon, I don't know if you've played any games or watched any movies, I'd personally stop. I would stop and I would go nowhere near the tail. I think we can assume something bad would happen, and there we go.
But even with the very real possibility of being roasted alive by the radioactive fire of a failed criticality test, the tickling the dragon's tail experiments continued. Within 2 years, neutron reflection experiments on the Demon Core would claim the lives of 2 scientists, Harry K. Daghlian Jr. and Louis Slotin, in almost the exact same way. On August 21, 1945, Harry K. Daghlian Jr. was conducting a criticality experiment with the Demon Core. He was placing tungsten carbide bricks around the mass of plutonium to see how many bricks and in what orientation it would take to reflect enough neutrons to cause the core to go critical. That afternoon, using a Geiger counter-like device to measure the radiation coming off of the plutonium, he got close enough to criticality that he decided to end the experiment. Now, this result should have been worth just a few graphite streaks in a notebook and maybe a beer at the local bar with the other physicists, but Daghlian was curious. Later that night, he returned, alone, to his assembly for another test.
Why would you go back on your own? Like, you cannot be that curious. Surely not. That is actually something I do like when the meds wear off. Like 100%. Like, you go, oh, do you know what? We didn't try this. We didn't try this. And instead of just thinking about it, off you go. Off you go. Middle of the night. Let's go interact with the devil ball.
Like the tests before, Daghlian created an orientation of bricks that his measuring device told him was nearly critical. As he was placing one last brick, the measuring device indicated that the core would go critical if he continued on the assembly. The dragon would wake up.
Let me guess. He continued to add bricks. Yeah? Yeah? Just foreshadowing here. I'm assuming he ignored the machine and then continued to add bricks. Just a prediction.
So cautiously, he began removing the final brick, and then he dropped it. The moment the brick hit the assembly, the Demon Core instantly went supercritical. And according to Daghlian, there was a blast of blue light and a wave of heat. Daghlian reacted quickly, though, and used his right hand to knock the dropped brick all the way to the floor.
Yo, that is crazy. Do you remember, that's when you do this stuff in the middle of the night. You are literally asking for trouble. Like, I can't remember anything productive that I have tried to do in the middle of the night that, other than in my head at that moment, went well. You know what I mean? I'm clumsy. I'm not with it. The last thing I should do, or anybody should do, is fiddle around with nuclear material on your own.
In those fractions of a second, Harry had received a fatal dose of radiation. In fact, he had endured what was likely the highest acute dose of radiation of any human in history. 25 days later, Daghlian fell into a coma and died from organ failure owing to severe radiation poisoning.
Do you know what? It's actually better, though. Surely, it's better to have like a massive dose of it than a lethal but smaller dose. Because there's some really messed up stuff that happens if you get like a semi-lethal dose, like skin peeling off and stuff. Like, if you're gonna go out, I mean, pardon the pun, but go out with a bang, you know?
This photo, taken 9 days after the accident by medical staff, is of the hand that Harry had used to stop the Demon Core. He was 24. Harry wasn't completely alone and experimenting in the lab that night. A security guard, Private Robert J. Hemmerly, was also sitting at his desk next to Daghlian reading his newspaper. Hemmerly died 33 years after Daghlian Jr. from what is now considered to be radiation-caused leukemia. He was 29 and the father of 2 at the time of exposure.
Wait.
Harry K. Daghlian Jr. was the first official fatality from a criticality accident and the first American casualty of the atomic age. He had arranged to have his body donated to science after his inevitable end so that scientists could study the effects of radiation exposure on the human body.
Wait, so he knew he was going to go out like this? Okay, now I'm starting to feel like it was planned, and I actually feel really bad for security guard. I feel really bad. Now, that kind of sucks.
During the 25 days after his fatal mistake, Daghlian's colleague, Louis Slotin, spent many hours at his bedside, comforting the 24-year-old as radiation poisoning slowly claimed him. Exactly 7 months later, in the same hospital, Louis...
Oh, right after he exposed. Okay, sorry, I thought that was before. I was going to say, that's premeditated. Nuclear... I don't even know. Oh, his skin did peel off. Oh, fantastic stuff. Or not fantastic.
Slotin would suffer the exact same fate.
That's crazy, though. Why would
By
you do it on your own?
1946, physicist Louis Slotin had taken over the critical assembly group from Frisch. Though the criticality experiments were moved from the Omega site at Los Alamos to the Palajito laboratory, the dangerous nature of the experiments did not change. In addition to Feynman's continued warnings, physicist Enrico Fermi said that, quote, "Keep doing that experiment that way, and you'll be dead within a year."
That sounds like a smart man.
Louis Slotin wasn't worried, and the experiments continued. On May 21st, 1946, Slotin was conducting another criticality experiment with the Demon Core. This time, though, instead of using tungsten bricks, Slotin was testing the critical point of the core by placing it inside 2 half spheres made of beryllium and lowering those halves until there was just a sliver of space before the sphere was complete.
That doesn't look safe. Is this AI? Is this a real image? I know it says not from the actual incident, but I mean, just off rip, like that doesn't look like you're taking any levels of protection again. It's real, bro. It's like he's sealing that by hand with no like hazmat suit with like a metal prong right now, like it's a fucking Pokeball. Like that's not okay. That is not okay to do.
If the core was completely enclosed, the reflection of neutrons would be total, and the dragon would wake again. The local expert among experts, Slotin was reportedly brash in his experimental protocols.
Yo, he might actually be like the coolest looking nuclear scientist I've seen, though. But he's kind of got aura.
In his signature pair of blue jeans and cowboy boots, Slotin would perform the criticality tests without the fail-safe spacers that would sit on the half spheres and keep it from ever completely closing. Instead, he would put his bare hand on the top half sphere and attempt to lower it using only the blade of a flathead screwdriver. That way, he could get much closer to criticality. And Slotin had successfully completed this experiment dozens of times.
I mean, it only takes one fuck up. Is that all right? I'm going to double down. Yeah, it is. Can you imagine? Like, I don't need the failsafe. Just give me my bare hands and a screwdriver. That is kind of aura. It's stupid, but I mean, imagine that. You're just looking in through like the protective glass screen and you see a man just like shades on, fucking topless, and he's just like, that's the stuff. I mean, he's kind of cool. Stupid.
The afternoon of the accident, Louis Slotin was conducting the same screwdriver experiment as 7 other colleagues recorded and watched. It was just like the test before, but for whatever reason, this time, the screwdriver slipped. The moment the spheres touched, the Demon Core went prompt critical. The reflected neutrons coming from the plutonium inside the sphere instantly initiated supercriticality. Like the Daghlian accident, there was a flash of blue light and a wave of the dragon's heat before Slotin could flip the top half sphere off of the assembly. Naturally, the 7 other scientists in the room ran out as fast as they could as the accident occurred, but Slotin shouted them all to get back and tossed them a stick of chalk. He told them each to mark down precisely where they were standing. By establishing their positions relative to the Demon Core, Slotin would be able to calculate just how much radiation each person had just absorbed, and how much their lives had just been shortened.
Wait, no, there is no shot. How are you... Okay, I'm doubling down again. Yes, 100% aura. Stupid aura. But oh my god. He is that cool and collected. He's just witnessed it go critical. Is a probably guaranteed death. Like, there's no if, buts, or maybes around that one. He knows he's going to die from this, right? And he's like, no, don't you dare move a muscle. I need the exact measurement of where you got blasted, please, because with my last few fucking days of standing up on my own 2 feet, I'm going to study this shit. That's cool and collected. I feel bad for the people that had to trust this guy to do this, though.
According to physicist Raymer Schreiber, who was present in the room with Slotin that day, Slotin's first words immediately after the incident were, quote, "Well, that does it." Louis Slotin died.
I can't help but like the guy. I mean, he's an idiot, and I wouldn't have got in the room with him. I would have quit my job. The second I saw that man doing it with a screwdriver, I'm quitting my job, I'm leaving. But that is the most nonchalant way to react to having the most, like, gruesome demise. Well, that's it.
Died of severe radiation poisoning 9 days later at the age of 35. He died in the same hospital as Harry Daghlian Jr. on another Tuesday the 21st as a result of the same accident with the same hunk of radioactive material.
Jesus.
They even were cared for by the same nurse.
Oh, you already know that nurse is just like, what in the fuck are you guys doing here? Not another one of you. Like, they are so sick of this piece of shit.
Demonstration that day was supposed to be the final demonstration with the core before it was used in a test detonation, and it was. In those few moments, Louis Slotin had been exposed to over 1,000 rads of radiation from the neutrons and gamma rays blasting out of the demon core.
I'll just pop a rad away, you'll be fine.
This is possibly the highest dose of radiation any human has ever taken. As a comparison, 1,000 meters from ground zero in Hiroshima, the neutron radiation was measured as less than half of what Slotin had absorbed in those fractions of a second. Since 1945, over 60 criticality accidents have been recorded, leading to at least 21 deaths in facilities and labs all around the world. The flash of blue light that so often accompanies these incidents is an indication of the invisible radiation being released. As high-energy particles crash through the air, like these particles exiting a cyclotron, they excite the air molecules. The only way for these molecules to return to a lower energy state is to release some radiation of their own, photons of light. But while gases can absorb and re-emit the energy imparted to it by nuclear material, human bodies cannot. Instead, particles and gamma rays flying out of the nuclear cores rip electrons from the molecules that make you up and smash your cellular machinery beyond repair.
Wait, so it just breaks up your DNA? I also find that's actually a really nice way of thinking about nuclear energy, is that it basically is like the one guy that you want to go to the party with. You know what I mean? He's that one guy that just gets the party going. Because he's so fucking energetic and everybody just has to fucking party. Let off some steam. Yeah, I like that way of thinking about it. If I ever see out my window a nice old mushroom cloud, that's going to be my last thoughts. That's going to be my last thoughts. One last party.
When enough molecular damage is done, radiation sickness can manifest itself as everything from vomiting and diarrhea to blisters, inflammation, impaired cognition, widespread organ failure, confusion, nausea, high fever, dizziness. 5 weeks later, on July 1st, 1946, a different nuclear core was destroyed in a 23-kiloton air-deployed nuclear weapon over Bikini Atoll. It was supposed to be the end of the Demon Core. Instead, the Demon Core was melted down and redistributed throughout the rest of the United States stockpile, effectively getting a brand new half-life. Until next time.
That's crazy, though. That is crazy. Was that it?
Yeah. Storytime with Kyle's a little serious, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you so much to the very nerdy staff at the facility for their direct and substantial support in the creation of this.
That is nuts. Honestly, though, I don't understand why, for one, you'd even be in the room with these guys. I mean, I would very much want to know their intentions before I said yes to any job with them. Do you think you're going to die? Yeah, it's pretty likely. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for the job interview. I hope you find you fill the position soon. Like, that is actually nuts. I mean, to get up in the middle of the night and to do it, and then the other guy using a bloody screwdriver to lower it down. I mean, you are just asking for trouble. I struggle to have much sympathy for that one. I really do. Yeah, this Patreon list is nuts. GG's, Kyle. But no, that was actually crazy. No, that was nuts.